If you don't know me, I am Landi Maduro. I am very passionate about helping filmmakers, which is why I launched a new division of my company, Blue Child Academy, where I offer educational courses because I really want to see filmmakers win. Welcome, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, and let me turn this off because I don't want to get phone calls while we're talking. For those of you who don't know who I am Landi Maduro. So I am a writer, director, and producer based in SoCal. So I have a production company called Blue Child Entertainment, where we do documentaries, feature films, shorts. We do industrials. So industrials are like those tutorials you may have to watch at your job. Like if you ever had to watch an orientation video or one of those sexual harassment in the workplace videos. I like to say if it wasn't super cheesy and maybe decent, maybe my company shot it. But we do a lot of stuff like that. And then also we do like small business commercials and tutorials and things like that. So I kind of work in both spaces of creative and corporate. I have Blue Child Academy, which is my virtual film school. We just kind of launched that last year, so we're still kind of, getting students enrolled and stuff. I really love doing this. That's kind of what today is. It's kind of like a portion of Blue Child Academy, but it's basically an online film school where I teach both the cinematic and the business side of filmmaking because I was tired. For years I just taught the cinematic side of filmmaking, and it was beautiful to see the filmmakers who come through my programs like go on to win awards and do amazing things and get jobs. But then some of them, they're making this beautiful content, but weren't making any money. And so I decided I wanted to start implementing the business side because I was tired of seeing filmmakers make this awesome work and then be broke, right? And we're gonna stop all that. That's the goal, right? To stop that from happening. I'm also the founder and president of Women of Color Filmmakers, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit for skill building and networking for women of color who are pursuing careers in film and television. And even though we are called Women of Color Filmmakers, actually within the last year, we've opened it up. So we're not just women of color anymore. That is the basis of our organization, women of color and women who are people who identify as women of color. But we now kind of open it up to everyone. So that is my nonprofit that I'm very proud of to see the work that has come through that organization. And then I'm also the author of, which Mary held hers up a second ago, of the Ultimate Feature Film Production Planner. Yes. Oh, I'm so proud of that book. And basically, that is a step-by-step guide that for producing a film and generating revenue that allows you to plan out every process, every step of the filmmaking process. So from what I call pre-production, which is the part that you should really be doing before production, which is kind of having your strategies and business plan in place, which is some of what we're going to touch on today. And then pre-production, production, and post, and it allows you to schedule everything out, but it also is a step-by-step guide that kind of explains what each one of those sections are all the way through post-production and distributing, getting distribution for your film. So I am the author of that book. Okay. So I'd like to share all these things with you because I want you to understand, I understand the pain. Okay. I get how when you hear the business side of filmmaking, your toes curl, the hair on the back of your neck rises, and you're like, oh my God, I'm already overwhelmed, right? That is usually where we go. You hear business and your brain feels like it's going to explode. I get it. I get it. I totally get it. I am a creative too. I did not get into being a filmmaker to think about spreadsheets and business and planning and projection and revenue project. Like, of course not. I got into this because I'm a storyteller and I wanted to tell amazing stories, right? And I didn't want to be locked into one way of doing that. So I totally understand. But what I have learned over the years, the hard way, okay, the very hard, painful, crying in my pillow at night way, is that artistry without strategy is an expensive hobby. Okay. And I don't want y'all to have expensive hobbies anymore. I want you to have sustainable careers. So I hope you have a notebook handy, have your workbook handy, because we're going to deep dive into this. I am going to have a Q&A section at the end. So if you have a question, write it down because I have a lot I want to get through. We might be here a little over an hour, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. I get it Saturday afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Some people are joining us from different countries. So but it's your Saturday or maybe into your Sunday, and you're giving up time, right, to be here. So I want to be respectful of that. And I will be sharing a little bit about the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, which is where we deep dive into a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, which starts on Monday. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about why this is important, why this class exists, and why I'm doing this. Well, one, I'm doing this because as filmmakers, we have been conditioned to play small, right? We've been taught directly and indirectly that this is what the path to filmmaking looks like. First, you make your film. Then you submit it to a film festival, you collect those laurels, and then you sit back and you pray that distribution magically happens and falls from the sky, right? That's just kind of the hopes. It's like, well, now that we did all this, now what happens? And listen, I want to be clear because I'm not anti-film festival. I love film festivals. I've had my film in film festivals. I've been a judge for film festivals. But festivals can be a beautiful part of the journey. They're just one part of the ecosystem that you need to have as a filmmaker. But if your entire financial plan is based on laurels and hope, then we got a problem, right? That is not going to bring you success because hope is not a strategy. So we have to really start thinking differently. And the truth is, the days of actually getting distribution that way have really, really like it's really hard now. It's not like how it used to be. And honestly, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that it's ever really been that way for women or people of color, to be honest with you. Like, usually it's about relationships. It's always been about relationships, but the likelihood of you actually getting a distributor on your indie project that's heavily drama based with no stars is usually very, very slim, right? And so we have to think differently. You can't just put your head in the sand and hope that some sales agent or manager is going to magically help get your career going or get you distribution. The industry is changing and the competition is fierce, right? Now, with the induction of all these awesome tools that make our lives easier from digital filmmaking to AI, the competition is getting stiffer and stiffer. So you now have to think differently and have a strategy. If you want to be among the ranks of Issa Rae or Tyler Perry or Ryan Coogler or now indie creator Mark Fishbach, better known as Markiplier, which I'm going to talk more about later on, you have to do more than just make good work. You have to understand business. Every single one of them built leverage by understanding how their work makes money. Okay. They didn't wait to be chosen. They built something that couldn't be ignored. And that's the part that filmmakers don't always want to hear, right? But it's the part that sets you free from being bogged down by someone picking you, okay? Because investors, distributors, and studios don't fund passion, they fund plans. And this class is about helping you start thinking like someone who has a plan, okay? So I want you to go to that first page in your workbook for those of you who are here on the Zoom. And you can skip down the page that says how to use this book. You guys can read that on your own time. But that very first page that says, what's been your plan so far? I want you to just take a moment and think about what has been your plan so far? Like, what are your thoughts? And if you say, I have no plan, it's okay, right? I didn't know what a plan should be. That's why I'm here, Landi. But if you just were thinking, oh, well, I was going to just put it in the film festival, or I just want to get you thinking for a second before this, what was your plan? Which part of the traditional path have you been relying on? And what would it feel like to have another option? Okay. So just take a moment, just going to take like 60 seconds and just think about that for a moment. Oh my gosh, Lucas is from Uganda. Thank you, Lucas, for joining us. And it's midnight here. Yeah, I knew some people were from other places. Thank you for staying up with us and hanging out with us today. I appreciate it. All right. All right, you guys. So while you're finishing that up, I know I'm not giving you that long. We're going to deep dive into more, and it's okay. This is for you to work through on your own. I'm trying to get you thinking a little bit. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the film financing dilemma that I have heard over and over and over again. So I I work with a film finance company. I do some consulting. And so one of the things I hear the most, the biggest complaints I hear from investors, from film financiers and distributors is that, and these are the things that they don't always say, like when you see them on a panel at a film festival, but that they complain about filmmakers all the time. One, filmmakers don't understand business. That's probably the biggest one. They think that their idea and their passion should be enough, right? I've heard this complaint time and time again where it's like, a filmmaker's like, oh my God, there's nothing like this, right? Nobody likes to hear there's nothing like what your film is because that shows there's no proof in the marketplace that it is marketable. So that usually sends anyone in the business world freaking out. Even if it's true, you can't approach it with my movie is the best thing since sliced bread, right? They want to know that you've thought about it from a business standpoint. When you come in saying that, they automatically know that you don't know anything about business, and that sets off red alarms everywhere. Okay. So your passion, yes, they want you to be passionate because people who are passionate get things done, but they also want you to understand business. Two, they fight for things business people can care less about. Business people do not care about your lens choice, your director's vision, the character arc. They don't care about any of that stuff. Okay. They want to know that you have a strategic plan for how this movie is going to make money. And so you also have to understand how to tailor things depending on who you're speaking to, right? If you are trying to get an investor, if you're trying to get a distributor on board, you have to be able to speak to them and not stay in your beautiful artistry head of butterflies and rainbows, right? And I'm one too, because I sometimes like, okay, this is not my strong suit, right? But you have to be able to speak to what your strategy is for your film to actually make money. They have no idea how they're going to give the investor a return on investment. I can't tell you how many filmmakers I've talked to who actually have this problem. When they say, oh, I want to raise $500,000 for my movie, I'm seeking that from an investor. Okay, great. And they have this beautiful pitch deck and all these things. Okay, great. Well, how are you going to pay the investor back? And then there's crickets. If there's crickets in a meeting when someone asks you how you're going to pay them back, I can tell you right now, you're not going to get that investor. You have to have a strategy and a plan. Nothing makes an investor, a financier, or a distributor more nervous when you have no clue as to how you're going to give them back their money or how you're going to help make this movie make money. Okay. So you have to have a plan as to how you're going to do that. They think one investor is supposed to give them all the money for their projects. Now, there's a caveat to this. Yes, it is possible that you can get all the money for a film from one investor, and there isn't anything wrong with that. However, most investors don't want to be the first in. They want to know that you have skin in the game. So that could mean that you're going to have to raise some funds on your own. Either you're going to have to get a loan, do some crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a great way. Like if you can raise a few $1,000s on your own without them giving money, and you can say, look, this is how much money we raised on our own, right? We've raised $30,000 on our own, and now we're seeking, money from you. That shows that you're very committed. So they want to know that you have some skin in the game. You can't just rely or think that one person is just supposed to give you money and you've done nothing to raise some money yourself. Okay. And then, sorry. There we go. The amount of money they are asking for doesn't match their credits. You are not going to get, and I don't like to ever tell anyone never, right? Because anything is possible. I don't believe in telling people they can't achieve something, but it is highly unlikely that someone is going to give you $3 million or $5 million to make your first feature film when you've never handled $5 million before, right? You have no record, you have no clue, you just have this film and you're passionate about it, but there's no proof that you can handle that amount of money. This is probably one of the most common things I see with indie filmmakers too. So if you are passionate, what would help you with this, right, is you have to have a team around you that maybe has handled it. But you alone, the likelihood of you getting that much money from someone when there's no proof that you can handle it and you've never done it before and you've never made a feature film before, the likelihood is very slim. So you have to start to understand these business things. It's super important. And the reason for this is you are a high risk investment. You couldn't go to a bank right? And ask for a $5 million loan when you have no assets or no proof that you can return or make the payments, right? And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to filmmaking. Understanding that as a high risk investment, you have to have a plan. And I know some of y'all want to go into the pitch meeting with your Canva pitch decks and your beautiful vibes, but this is the things that are going to cause you to not get what you're asking for if you don't start to think about it. Okay. So I want you again, we're going to go back to our workbooks for a moment. And I want you to go to the film financing dilemma page in your workbook. And I just want you to take just a few moments. Again, you can deep dive into this on your own, but I want you to just take a moment and fill out the question right there. Which one of these have you experienced? And if you've never pitched before or never even thought about it before, or not had the opportunity to seek out an investor, even if it's just, oh, I just thought I could do this. I just want you to check off in that workbook which one of these applies to you. Okay. So just take a moment to do that. And I see your question. I'm going to answer questions at the end. Okay. I want to make sure we get through everything. And then I'm going to take questions at the end. So if you think you'll forget your question, make sure you write it down. All right. I see some of you still working. I guess I should have had some working music. Sorry, guys. Wasn't thinking. All right. So you can continue working on that on your own. I just wanted to kind of get you started. Okay. So if you're saying to yourself, man, I hadn't thought of any of these things, right? It just means I don't want you to beat yourself up or anything like that. It just means you didn't have a clear revenue story or strategy. And it's totally okay. That is the point of today. We're going to start working on fixing that. But you do have to keep in mind investors and funders aren't looking for perfection. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, I've seen more projects financed that maybe the scripts weren't tight or they had beautiful decks. Like the decks were good, but the scripts weren't tight, right? And the investors would be like, oh, well, we can pay someone to fix the script if they're not qualified, but they have such a strong business plan that we want to work with this person. And they're very clear on how their movie is going to generate revenue. So they're excited to work with this person. They felt the creativity is something that can be fixed. So know that don't focus on perfection. I know those of us who are artists, we're very sensitive about our art and we want it to be beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. Please don't think I'm saying put out stuff that's not, because I don't say Landi said that, because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that these tools matter just as much as the filmmaking process, right? So really making sure that you're constantly cultivating this side is important. And it really can make a difference when you're trying to get your film out there. Okay. All right. So now, when a lot of people, well, actually, let's dive into our first revenue stream. That's what I want to go to. So we're going to go over three today, as I promised. But the first revenue stream that I like to share with filmmakers is one that I think could really be helpful is, if I can click it, licensing, right? Licensing your film immediately shifts you out of hope and passion and into conversations of business, because it answers the question every financier is really asking: who is willing to pay for this and why? When you understand licensing, your film stops being just a creative project and starts becoming a tool that organizations can actively pay to use. And that changes everything on how your work is perceived. Now, when a lot of filmmakers hear the word licensing, right, they immediately think, okay, well, what is that? That sounds complicated. It sounds like I'm gonna have to do a whole lot. But honestly, all licensing means is that an organization or business is paying you a fee to screen your film. That's it. You're paying you a fee. And it was really easy. Instead of selling your film to like the general public or to the masses, right? You're allowing a specific organization to use your film for a specific purpose. And there are far more organizations looking for content than most filmmakers realize, and all kinds of content. And I'm talking schools, universities, nonprofits, government agencies, associations, conferences, HR departments, even corporations. They all love using films in order to screen them for several reasons, right? These groups are constantly looking for ways to educate on subject matter that relates to their cause, to spark conversation, or to reach communities they don't always know how to reach. And a film is a great conduit to do that. When your film speaks to a topic they care about, your work stops being just a movie and starts becoming something much more valuable. Your film becomes a tool. And tools can be purchased. And I'll be honest with you, licensing is the number one way that I make money with my films. I do have films on streaming platforms, but I do better with licensing right now. One, because they're not really paying what they used to. That's a whole nother conversation. But licensing your film to specific organizations is a great way for you to make money. Okay. And not just streaming platforms. And I say that so that you understand this isn't theory, like I'm sharing with you, this is what I do, that this is actually something that you could definitely work for you. Okay. And let me just give you an idea of what type of films are great for this. And honestly, it's thinking outside the box. Okay. Because sometimes people hear this and they think only one type, but you really just need to think outside the box and find that audience. So, of course, documentaries are great. I actually have a documentary that I license a lot, but documentaries about health or anything like that, the film can live inside the medical organizations or nonprofits to do outreach. So this is something that I do a lot with my doc. I license it to pharmaceutical companies, medical organizations, diagnostic study companies, nonprofits, churches. They all pay a licensing fee to license my film. And then sometimes they do it for internal use. Sometimes they want to have an event around it, but it's usually for a specific cause or purpose or something that they have going on. But it doesn't have to be a doc. A film about, if you had a cool narrative film about a vineyard owner, then I would look for wine groups or wine connoisseurs and see if, or corporate retreats, if they want to have something fun at their corporate retreat about wine and they're going to do this whole wine experience, then your film might be great. And to be honest with you, some corporations take like day retreats at vineyards. Me and my sister took a staycation and went to this vineyard, and there was a whole mortgage company having their like little retreat at the vineyard. They were just there to drink wine. They were calling it a retreat, but them people were just there to get drunk and drink wine. Okay. So why couldn't your movie be incorporated with that if it fit that theme, right? And they were dressed in their stuff and they had their name tags, but them people was drinking. That's what they were there to do. Your movie could have been something fun that they could have done together as a collective. If you have a film about workplace culture, or identity, or communication, it could be useful for a corporate setting. If you made a short about a community issue, the film can be screened at conferences, agencies, or local events where people are already gathering about this subject. And I do want you to understand this could be a feature or a short. And honestly, shorts do better in this type of revenue stream because things can be built around your short for an event. So those of you who think, well, I just did shorts and I don't know what to do with them. No, shorts do excellent for licensing because anything that's 30 minutes or less, they can do a lot with it. Features can do it too. Don't feel like, oh, all I have is features. But for those of you who got shorts sitting on hard drives, this might be a great way for you to start generating some revenue. And what I want you to understand is this: licensing allows your film to live where the conversation is already happening. These are people who are already interested in the subject matter of your film, even if they don't know you yet, right? You got to do the engagement, but they're already interested in this subject matter and they have a whole group of people who are. So now it's just you tapping into that. And I'm not going to walk through the logistics of how to do this today for the purposes of this class. That's something we do deep dive into in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, but I want you to walk away with the realization that you don't always need to do traditional distribution in place, or to get your film out there. You can start generating revenue through licensing. And sometimes the check comes from the mission, not the movie, right? Like if this is something that's on point and that can make you money, who cares? It doesn't mean, these things don't mean you can't do what you want to do, which is get it distributed, get it on a streaming platform. As I mentioned, I do both. This is another way for you to generate revenue. And here's the part filmmakers often miss. Licensing doesn't just create income, it can also open doors. It can lead to funding opportunities, partnerships, and even distribution conversations down the line because you've already proven that your film has value in the real world. That's what all of this is. When you're a filmmaker, you have to prove your film has value. Because of licensing my films, I've built community around it. And this is something I like to say I Forrest Gump my way through. I did not know that this was even possible until I just started doing it, right? But it opened so many opportunities for me for partnerships. And now I'm in negotiation with two corporations to fund my next doc on a health matter, on cancer. My first one was on prostate cancer. Now we're doing prostate, colorectal, and pancreatic cancer, right? And so now they're already interested because I have proof that I can create a film that can, do well and can solve their, help their cause. And so you can do the same. All right. So I want you to go to your workbook and just scroll down to the revenue lane number 1, which is licensing. I just want you to take a moment and just kind of think about your film for a second. Could your film be licensed, right? And pick one film. I know some of you have multiple from reading your questionnaires, but ask yourself those questions. My film deals with topics related to what? Education, identity, workplace, social, and it doesn't have to be those. You can mark other, but just think about it for a second. It could be about swimming. It could be about motorcycle biking. It could be about, I don't know, knitting, right? It doesn't matter. There are people who like everything, coffee. It could be about any of these things, but start thinking about that. Is there an organization that might use my film to get people educated on the various ways of brewing coffee, right? If you're a person who spends a lot of time making sure you have authenticity in your script and you did all this research, because I know some of you are like that, you do all this research to make sure you're getting those details right, you're now kind of an expert on that. So is that something that you can utilize to tap into an organization? Something to think about. An organization might use my film to do what? Spark conversation, support a mission, create awareness. What could they use your film for? Groups that might already care about this topic. Is there a school or university? Is there, you know what? Facebook is your friend. For those of you who ain't got Facebook accounts, there is a Facebook group for everything on the face of this planet. So go on Facebook and check out groups. Just do a search. Hashtag, motorcycle biking, hashtag, I don't know, wine connoisseurs, and you'll get all the groups in that category. And then just start researching those groups, filling it out. And then you can read. Now you have to do some research, read what they say. Okay, I said I wasn't going to tell you guys how to do it, but anyway, we deep dive into that in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge. But I just want you to start thinking about that. All right, and then in one sentence, that popped up on my screen. In one sentence, describe the problem, question, or conversation your film could support. Okay, take a moment to think about that. Timmy, I just saw your question. Are you able to access a Zoom call at a later time or get the presenters' points? This is live on Facebook right now, so it'll definitely be live on my Facebook page for a few days. Landi Maduro. If you go to Facebook/Landi Maduro, you'll be able to watch it there. And I may put it on YouTube later. Right. See, everyone is working. Okay. So you guys can finish that on your own. Move this over so I can see questions. All right, so let's go to the next revenue stream. This one's one of my favorites. And the second revenue stream that I feel is really accessible for indie filmmakers that a lot of indie filmmakers sleep on is ancillary products, where you're selling the world around your film. And I want to introduce this to you. One, I feel like this is my favorite because I feel like this is a great way for filmmakers to marry their creativity to the business. You guys are so amazingly creative. You come up with all these things for your films. Why can't you have products that do the same, that also make you money and get people excited about your film? So, an ancillary products are products that connect to your film. They are not essential to watching the movie, right? People don't need to purchase it in order to understand the movie, but they're absolutely essential to you making money. So they help build upon the world of your film. So here's the shift I want you to start making in your thinking. You're not just making a film, you are building that world for your audience, right? So Marvel doesn't just sell movies, they sell the universe. The films aren't just the entry point. The real value comes from everything that's surrounding the story in the film, right? So it's the characters, it's the theme, it's the aesthetics, it's the feeling people have when they take that home with them, right? It's the merch, right? It's the action, it's all of it. People are, when you hear them talk, it's like the Marvel universe. Now I know it's like, oh my God, Landi, but they got goo gobs of money to do that. But who says you can't start doing that with your project on a smaller scale? You don't have to have this large studio behind you in order for you to do these things. You just do them smaller. So once you understand that, your film stops being the single event that, oh, it's just a movie, and starts becoming an experience. So think about a genre for a second. So if you have a horror film and your audience isn't just watching it to be scared, right? Horror fans are collectors. So they want props and masks and artworks and digital collectibles and graphic novels, behind the scenes, lore and special edition. These things let them stay in the world of the story long after the credits roll. And it doesn't just have to be a horror movie, right? Oh, I missed that little line, but you guys get it. There are products connected to your film, not essential to the movie, but essential to the money. So, for example, that's a great example, a horror mask. What if you created a mask that your villain wears, right? And see, this is where it's kind of cool if you are like in the development stages, because you can write these things in and create these products, right? And then you're taking your audience on this journey with you as you bring your film to life. Now, it doesn't matter what stage you're at, all these things can be done, but I'm just giving you an example. So let's say your villain wears a mask. Why couldn't you have that mask made and sell that as a product that ties to your movie? What about ebooks, right? If you feel like, oh, I can't afford to make any physical products, an ebook is something with ChatGPT, Claude, and all these other things that you are probably on 24/7, right? All of us use ChatGPT now, most of us, right? Why couldn't you create an ebook that's based on your movie? If you had a movie about bartenders, right? Female bartenders, like a Coyote Ugly type movie. I know I'm dating myself with the movie references, but you guys get what I mean, right? But if you had a movie about, women who bartend, why couldn't you have a book called Mixology that broke down some of the signature drinks that are in the movie, how you make them, and sell that as an ebook? It's not goo gobs of money, but it gets people excited about, oh my gosh, I made this specialty drink. And then it's something you could have at the screening of your film, right? So if you did mixology, and then I would always make sure I put on there, brought to you by the film such and such. So like for this example, I wrote brought to you by the movie Bar Chicks, right? But whatever it is, it should be brought to you by such and such. So people are always associating the product with the film. If you had a movie about chess, you definitely must have done work or know something about chess to do a movie about chess, because you have to be able to break down what those moves mean. So why couldn't you have a digital download book for chess for beginners that breaks down how to beat chess? And it's a guide to playing chess based on the movie Chess Master, right? So again, you're getting your audience excited. If you're doing like me, I have a horror movie we're working on. Why couldn't you do a graphic novel that's tied to your horror movie that could get your fans excited about what's coming out? And AI makes all this easy for you. Yes, I know some of you are purists and you don't want to use AI to make films, and that's fine, but you should definitely be using it to make your workflow easier. And you should definitely be using it to create products for yourself that's not going to make your head explode, but because it's like, oh my God, I got all this stuff to do, but it's going to generate revenue for you. These are easy, low-hanging fruit things that you can do to start getting your audience engaged and start making money for yourself. Okay. And just think outside the box. So again, it doesn't have to be a horror movie. If you had a romantic comedy, and your audience, they're not just there for the plot, they're there to connect emotionally and have some relatability. So could you not have products that tie to your film? Maybe you have things to help them with date night, maybe games, maybe you have some type of watch party kit or journals or interactive experience that extends the feeling of the film into their actual lives. So things that they can do, right? Who said a romantic comedy couldn't have this? And really get your audience excited. What about if you had a documentary? You can become the go-to person who, depending on the subject matter of your film, maybe there's discussion guides and toolkits, a speaker series, mini course, a live podcast. And actually, we did a limited live podcast for my documentary, the one that we're getting ready to work on this year, just to get the people interested as part of the crowdfunding campaign. And it helped us raise money. We did very well doing that. We had experts come on and talk about different things in the space. You could do the same thing too, especially if you are doing a documentary, because you're already reaching out to experts, right? So really thinking about what products could I create that could get people immersed in the world of my film beyond just watching it. Okay. So I want you to take a moment and go to your workbook and look at ancillary products and just take a moment and ask yourself, what could you create? Could you do something educational? I saw a typo in. Oh, what emotion or feeling does your audience walk away with after experiencing your film? Do they feel seen, inspired, uncomfortable in a good way, right? Uncomfortable because they can't stop talking about your movie, which is great. That's what you want. Empowered. What do you want them to walk away with after watching your film? What might your audience want to do next? That's where I saw the typo scene. That one shouldn't be there, but talk about it with their friends, learn more about the topic, share it with their community, reflect privately, take action, stay connected to the story. When you can start answering these questions about your film, then you can start thinking about what products you can create and also what's within your budget that could actually serve your audience. And then brainstorm a product that helps your audience do what? Maybe experience that will lead them to what, right? A tool that would deepen the story by, like, think about these things. What would serve your movie and the type of stories you like to tell, right? So take a moment and just look at that. And Lucas, I see your question. I'll address it at the end. All right. Looks like everyone is starting to look up. All right. So when you think about these things, right, and you start to build out these tools, you realize that your audience doesn't just want to watch your film, they want to engage with it. And that's what's really important. Ancillary products allow the engagement to happen in meaningful ways. So it's not just you're just creating stuff for nothing, you're really tapping into what they want. And the cool thing about ancillary products is they're a very powerful way to do two things. One, create revenue for yourself, right? You can start creating that revenue that will help you make your movie or help you make your next movie. And it creates buzz, meaning that not only does it help you build your audience, but it gets them excited about your film. When people buy something connected to your movie, they're not just purchasing an item, they're signaling belief. They're becoming ambassadors, right? Most of us, I see a lot of ladies on here. We are definitely the type that when we like something, we tell all our friends. We tell a girl, you got to get this hand cream. Oh my gosh, your skin looks great. I know, right? I'm using such and such. You need to get you some. Like, that's how we are. So that And that's organic, right? Organic sharing, organic publicity, organic marketing, right? Whatever word you want to attach to it. But people naturally do something when they like something, they want to tell others about it. And so this is a great way to start building that organic connection with your audience and having them become ambassadors who share about your story and the things that you're doing. They help spread the word about you. Now, again, I'm not going to deep dive into the mechanics of how to do all this and how to build and launch in your products today, because again, that's something we talk about in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge and something we go deep into in Blue Dot Academy. But I wanted you to walk away with just an understanding that relying on single revenue stream of just getting your film distributed is not a great way to make money. It's the fastest way to stall out and to get burnt out with making your film. So inside the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, we build what I call a product ladder. And that's a way for your film to have this whole ecosystem instead of just a single point of failure. That's how you create sustainability. That's how your film starts working for you instead of you constantly chasing the next opportunity. And ancillary products, they're not add-ons, they're strategy. This is part of the strategy. If you're pitching your movie to that investor and they understand that you have ancillary products attached and you can already speak to how much revenue those products are making, or your projections, which I know we don't like that word as creatives, but think of it from a creative standpoint that you have made something, right, with your creativity, and you can already see that it could potentially make this much money. Now you got an investor excited and a distributor excited because it makes it that much easier for the distributor to pitch your movie to a streaming platform because they know there's eyeballs who are already interested in what it is that your story has to say or how your story serves an audience. You can now speak to that from a place of education and not guessing, right? Because you've done the legwork. Ancillary products open that door for you. And that's what we are going to talk about in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, is really building that product ladder. And just so I'm not just using buzzwords, I want you to understand a little bit about what a product ladder is. I want to give you an example. So imagine as an indie film, you guys are indie filmmakers working on a documentary. Okay, I'm going to use a documentary about, let's say, about burnout and mental health in the workplace. Now, instead of just treating the film as the only thing that matters, right? It's just about the film. You have to think of it in terms of an ecosystem. So at the top is the film itself, right? That's the main thing. That's kind of like your anchor. That's the story. That's the emotional core. But before the film is widely released, people are starting to engage with the idea of the film. They're following the journey. They relate to the topic. They feel seen. So some of them don't even know when the film is coming out. It doesn't matter because now you have these products. So if we go back kind of like to this example, right, my little photo here, it doesn't matter because now you have the products that are attached to it. And so their interest starts to grow and the film starts to create a way for people to go deeper with your film. So maybe not everyone wants the same thing. Some people just want to watch the movie, true, but then others may want the discussion guide because that topic really ties in to the things that they're dealing with and they want to have their own little roundtable discussion around that subject matter. So now they're going to purchase that discussion guide for you. But some people in that discussion, roundtable discussion, may be like, wow, this is tied to this film. I want to learn more about this film. When does it come out? When is the screening for this film? Can I watch it somewhere? And that starts opening the doors for you. Some may want other tools, right? They may want access to your actual film. And honestly, this has happened to me where either someone has heard about my film through a roundtable discussion and then they asked to hold their own to license it, or they've seen it on the streaming platform and asked what they need to do to license it. So all these things can serve each other, right? Maybe someone just needs a more support in regards to the theme of your film. And so having affirmation cards might be great because they can utilize those to kind of do that daily support for themselves. Or maybe they're interested in the limited podcast. Like all these things start to serve each other and they actually all start to tie back to your film. So that's what I mean when I say a production ladder. You kind of have all these different rungs on the ladder that's kind of leading back to your film. And these are the kind of things that we're going to dive into a little deeper in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge. Okay. And just understanding that all these offerings really support each other. These things are things that people are going to want that will help them to really connect to your movie and build your audience. So if someone doesn't buy one thing, they might buy another. And if they don't show up at one moment, they might engage later. And that happens often too. So when it comes time for you to talk about partners, funders, or distributors, the film isn't saying, well, here's my movie, please like it, right? The movie's saying, here's the audience, here's how we engage, and here's how it's already working for us, or here's how we're already doing that. That's what I mean when I say product ladder, okay? So the film isn't standing alone or hoping for one big break. It's supported by the ecosystem that creates connection, revenue, and longevity. And that's something that we're going to dive into in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge next week. All right. All right. So let's talk about the last one. And the number three for today's class, anyways, it's not the last one, but number three for today is micro distribution. And number three is a concept that can completely change how you think about your film and honestly, how you think about your career, right? Because micro distribution is also what I like to call direct to audience. So if you think of licensing your film is when an organization writes you a check, then micro distribution is when multiple people pay to experience your film. And both count. You want both. If you can do both, that's great because both count, both build leverage, and both make you fundable if you're seeking funding from an investor or a film finance company. And both are really sexy to distributors. Okay. So most filmmakers have been taught that distribution is something that happens to them, right? You make the film, you submit it to festivals, you wait. You wait for a sales agent, you wait for a distributor, you wait for someone with power to say yes. But micro distribution flips that mindset. Instead of waiting for permission, you decide to release your film in small, intentional ways directly to the people who actually want to see it. You're not trying to reach everyone, you're trying to reach the right ones, the people who already care, who already feel connected to your story, to the story you're telling. That is what we call direct to audience. Now, this might look like several different ways. It might look like maybe you're doing a small ticketed community screening where the audience shows up because the subject matter speaks to their lives, right? Or they just are excited about your film. Maybe you do a paywall. So maybe you want to do more of a virtual screening to support the film because people will support it because they believe in you and believe in your film. So that would be like, doing something on Vimeo, right? Or maybe you're doing Gather or one of those platforms where you can put your film up and people actually pay to watch it. Maybe that's what would work for you. Maybe partnering, doing a screening with an organization. So having a specific night, but you're hosting it. So they're not licensing it from you. You're partnering with them and you're having a screening, but you're kind of tapping into their community as well, right? That could be an option for you. Or direct bundle, maybe since you have ancillary products, it's the movie plus a conversation, right? Plus a live event where you decorate, like you see in this picture here for this horror movie example. You decorate the venue to match the theme of your movie. Maybe you decorate it like a scene from your movie and have the products that your ancillary products that help deepen the story, right? And if you're doing something like this, I would say don't do a theater. Make it even more interesting. Maybe you can find an old warehouse. I used to do a lot of events back in the day. My friend owned a photography studio in North Hollywood that was it used to be a garage, like a mechanic's garage, right? And then he flipped it into a photography studio. But when I was still doing photography and stuff, I had some art events there. And it was cool because it looked like a garage, but it still was artsy, and people loved it. So don't think, oh, I got to do it in a theater. If you could rent a space for, couple $300 and have a special screening, make it intimate so you can only invite so many people and decorate it like the theme of your movie. If you're doing a horror movie, go for those end of now we're in, what month are we in? February, but in November when all those places are trying to get rid of their Halloween stuff, stock up and buy all that stuff for cheap and decorate. Like just think outside the box, right? Because these immersive experiences, people talk about them, they get excited about them, and can it really open doors for you? Okay. And when someone pulls out their credit card to watch your film, even in a small setting, that moment matters more than 1,000 people clapping at a free screening. Stop screening stuff for free, y'all. I hear more, oh, I'm just going to do a screening. I'm just going to put it on YouTube and have no plan for monetization. And I don't have time to talk about that today, but please stop doing that. Please stop. Okay. That is not helping you. And people will buy and support when you build these things out. And this is why I believe a small audience that buys beats a big audience that claps every day. Okay. Micro distribution gives you something incredibly valuable as a filmmaker: proof. You guys are making shorts for proof of concept. This is your proof that people like your work, that they're willing to support it financially, proof that changes how investors see you. When you can say, hey, I've done micro distribution, this is how much money we made, right? Or this is the how full the screening was, or how many people showed up. That's your proof of concept, right? We so busy making shorts for proof of concept, but not thinking about what that proof is actually supposed to do other than get us distribution or get someone to want to invest in your film. When you can back that proof with dollars, you made that short as a proof of concept. Why not have an immersive experience that also generated revenue? So now when you go to that film financier or that investor, this is our proof of concept, and we already know it works because we did some micro distribution, and this is what got the audiences excited, along with our revenue streams of ancillary products. And this is what those numbers are done. So if you invest in my movie, I can tell you that we know audiences are going to buy it. Do you know how sexy that is to an investor? Because you are not just talking like a creative. It is mad stupid sexy, okay? And again, I don't have time to get deep into it now. These are the kind of things we're going to deep dive into in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, because I want you to walk away with the understanding that you don't have to wait until your film is picked up to start creating momentum, revenue, and leverage. Micro distribution is about taking ownership of your relationship with your audience and realizing that your film doesn't need permission to start making money, okay? So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through this in your workbook, but I do want you to go to the revenue lane number 3 for micro distribution and go through and ask yourself these questions. Micro distribution is about people. Oh, here's the question. Which of these feels possible for your project? Could you do a ticketed community event or maybe an online premiere paywall? To me, the funnest one is doing a bundle type live event where you get to decorate, but I like doing events. But if you like, I don't want to be bothered with people. I don't even like people that much. I just like making movies. Then do virtual, right? And you can still have a fun experience, but go through that page in the workbook and really look at, is this something that's possible for your film or for you? Okay. All right. And I wanted to give you a real world example of this. Some of you heard me talk about this on social media, but I'm not just making this up. This is my example of micro distribution gone wild. Okay. I mentioned him earlier when we first got on the call today, but Mark Fishbach, aka Markiplier, is an amazing example of how this can work for you when you actually take the time to cultivate an audience and you genuinely care about them and their experience of your content. Like, you care about how they experience your content. So Markiplier, he is a YouTuber who built his audience through gaming. So he's a gamer and a filmmaker. And he was sharing the process of how he was making his film Iron Lung based on the video game of the same name. Okay. He didn't wait for a studio to decide his project was valuable. He didn't start with a traditional distributor. He started with direct relationship with, he grew his fan base to millions, and he started with direct relationship with them. And that's where he built their trust. When he released his project, he did not need permission because he already had demand. This is what micro distribution can do for you. He activated his audience directly. People didn't discover him through ads and press and marketing. He already had tapped into them. They showed up because they were already connected. They wanted to support his project and be part of the moment and the experience together. And when the audience showed up in theaters, it has shocked everyone. This just happened like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, okay? This dude, Markiplier, he could only afford 50 theaters. So he knew he wanted to do micro distribution. He could only afford 50 theaters. So he reached out to these theaters on his own to have his own screenings. Okay. And when he did this initially, now he did raise $3 million to make his film, but that was over a period of time. Okay. So he had been working on this film for many years because that's all he could do. Right. He did, raise the money, but the most he could afford was 50 theaters, which is still pretty good for an indie filmmaker. Well, he had such a demand from his audience that they went to AMC and Cinemark and all their local theaters and demanded that that his film be in those theaters. So he went from 50 theaters to 3,000 theaters because of his audience. His $3 million film made over $25 million and almost beat out Disney's Send Help as the top box office movie for opening weekends. Okay. An independent filmmaker. And the beauty, because he ain't got no distributor, he ain't got to share $25 million with nobody because he did it on his own. Okay. Why? I mean, and I know it sounds crazy when you hear this, and it sounds like he's an outlier, but he's not. He understood business. And trust me, you can go on YouTube and look him up. He can't even believe it himself. He is on every one of his YouTube episodes over the last few days, bawling his eyes out that his people, his fans showed up for him like this. And now he's getting attention from everybody and their mother. NBC did an article on him. Studios are reaching out to him. He's just overwhelmed, but he put in the work. Why? Because he broke the rules. That's why all these people are reaching out to him. Okay. So why does this matter as an indie filmmaker? Why am I sharing this with you? And I feel like this is really important. Actually, I skipped something, but I want to read what I wrote here because this is important. Markiplier answered the question before they even asked it, which is how an audience is going to be attracted to this? How are you going to get people wanting to watch this movie? By doing this, he not only made millions of dollars that he doesn't have to share with a distributor, but now studios have taken an interest in him. He has basically written his own ticket because when studios smell money, they can care less about the quality of your film and the emotional arc of the hero's journey. They don't give a damn. When they hear you made 20-something million on your own, they come a running. I'm not saying that that's not important, but I want you to be clear that money talks and money opens doors. So why does this matter for indie filmmakers? Well, one, he proved something incredibly important. You don't need a massive marketing budget if you have a mobilized audience. When your audience got your back, it is worth gold. Okay. So when you have a supportive audience, that trumps everything else. You don't need to convince strangers if you've already built trust. When they know that an audience trusts you and they'll do stuff like go and ask theaters to demand your movie, that speaks volumes. And you don't need traditional distribution to validate demand. Okay, that is not what makes studios interested in you. Yes, you can do it the other way, but when you do it this way, you have more control. This is why I call micro distribution gone wild. That's why I say that. Not because it's random, but because it's scaled beyond what the industry expected from a non-traditional creator. And they are talking buzzwords around him right and left. Now they're saying that this could be the introduction of how indie filmmakers take over the market from studios, right? I mean, everybody and their mother has articles. I know right now it's being outweighed by all the stuff happening in our government, which don't get me started on that for those of us who live in the United States. But before that happened, it was all about him. Okay. And so know that this is I mean, they're saying how he could be changing the game for indie filmmakers. And so we definitely have to start thinking differently. Most filmmakers don't fail because their films are bad. They fail because they don't have a plan to activate an audience. Inside the Profitable Filmmaker Challenge, we don't just talk about distribution, we build demand. Okay. And Markiplier didn't beat Hollywood by playing their game better. He changed the game by bringing his audience with him. He remained visible to his audience, and in turn, they cared about the success of his story. And for those of you who want to know, Iron Lung is still in theater. So if you want to check it out, it is definitely in I just looked it up on Fandango. It's definitely playing out by me. I don't know where all, but it's getting so much buzz. I'm sure they've opened more theaters because, again, this is just within the last week or so that this all happened. So you can definitely check that out if you're interested. All right, so know your value, and we're wrapping up because I want to make sure I have time for questions. Again, continue to work through these things in your workbook on your own time, but I want to make sure I have time to kind of answer any questions you guys may have. All right, so know your value, the power shift every filmmaker has to make. This is exactly why the business side of filmmaking matters, and I want you to really hear me when I say this. Your talent gets you noticed. Your strategy gets you paid. Okay. Say that one more time for those of you who ain't got your cameras on so I can't see your facial expressions. Your talent gets you noticed. Your strategy gets you paid. And I get it. I do. I totally understand. Most indie filmmakers, we are tired. Okay. We are tired. You pour your heart, your time, your money, and your relationship sometimes into a project. You sacrifice your weekends, you work for free or for favors, you stretch every dollar. And then when the film is done, you're told to put it out there and hope it finds a life on its own. And when it doesn't, you start questioning yourself. Is my movie good enough? Am I good enough? Did I miss my shot? Is this opportunity ever going to happen for me? The cycle is emotionally draining. And it's the one of the main reasons talented filmmakers quit and walk away from this industry, because this industry is hard. This is where knowing your value changes everything. When you hear people, stories from people like Ryan Coogler, his deal that made headlines, right, several months ago for Sinners, it wasn't because he had the studio budget. It was because the deal represented leverage. That's why it was such a big deal. It represented ownership and it represented negotiating power. He wasn't just being hired, he was setting his terms, right? Same with Tyler Perry. Um, and he's an even bigger example, right? Because now he's a billionaire. And early on, and even still somewhat now, the industry doesn't or didn't respect all of his content. They don't love it, right? Critics dismiss him. Gatekeepers underestimated him when he first got started. But the one thing that they could not ignore was the money, right? When they learned that he was making goo gobs of money from doing plays that he was shooting and taping himself based on characters he created, that spoke volumes. His work was consistently generating revenue, and the revenue gave him power. He was able to negotiate his own deals and keep control of how his stories were told because the money was the power. Okay. Money talks in this industry. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. Well, I'm not Tyler Perry and I'm not Ryan Coogler and I didn't go to film school and I don't have relationships and I don't. Well, neither did Markiplier. He built that, right? He built that. He didn't have it either. So let me say this clearly, and I want this to land. That does not mean that you don't have leverage just because you don't have celebrity or you didn't go to film school. None of that means that you don't have leverage. Leverage is not something you were born with or that's given to you. Leverage is something that you build. Okay. And you build leverage by building value. Value comes from understanding your audience. Value comes from having a strategy instead of a wish. Value comes from knowing how your work can generate revenue, not someday, but intentionally. I intentionally know because you did the work to make it happen. When you walk into a room and say, this is who my audience is, this is how they engage, and this is how the project makes money, that conversation shifts and you now have everyone's attention because you now have value and power. You stop being someone asking for permission, which I want us all to get out of this. Stop asking for permission and you start being someone that people want to partner with. You know, one of my friends, my friend Antoine Allen, he always said, stop asking for a seat at the table because when you build your own table, the food tastes better. I was like, yes, amen. We keep raising our hands, pick me, pick me. We got to stop that. And I'm going to speak specifically to some of the ladies in here now. We are probably the worst at that. And I'm speaking about myself too. Unfortunately, on that list that I showed you, the only person was Issa Rae out of all those dudes. We have to stop that. There is a movie on Apple TV. I think it's First on the Call Sheet. Yeah, First on the Call Sheet. And I was very disturbed watching that because all the guys were talking about how they created opportunities for themselves when they interviewed all the celebrity men. And all the women were talking about how there were no opportunities for them and they were upset about the lack of opportunity. Totally different language, right? So we need to create our own opportunities, not negating it ain't fair, not negating that there aren't opportunities, not negating that we have to work 10 times harder. But when you come in with leverage already, you dictate the negotiation. You can say, I don't need you because I don't like what you're offering and I'm already making money. So I don't need, all I wanted was further exposure. I'm not looking for you to do all this for me and you're not keeping total control. We give away too much of our power, right? You can carve carve out all these things in an agreement when you're negotiating distribution. You can carve out licensing. You don't have to give them 100% of everything. But when we step in with lack of knowledge, we don't even know what we're negotiating or arguing for, right? We don't even know what we have power for because we don't know what we don't know. And we step in because we're excited and give everything away. So I want that to stop. I want you to know your value and know your worth. It's about creating filmmaking careers that don't burn you out after one project. It's about making sure your work has a life beyond applause. And it's about being able to fund your next film and the one after that and the one after that without starting from zero every single time. And I know I just got on my soapbox for 2 seconds and I totally went away from my notes, but I'm very passionate about this because I'm tired of seeing it happen to filmmakers where they're taken advantage of or they sign all their rights away and then they can't pay back their grandma who gave them some money to make their movie. Yeah, it's on Netflix, but they ain't making no money. It's just on Netflix. And if you don't even know what to do with that type of exposure, now your film isn't doing anything, right? But you can just tell people, I got it on Netflix. If you ain't got a plan for having your film on Netflix, and being on Netflix is worthless because you have no idea even how to capitalize on your 15 minutes of fame, right? So that's why these things are important. That's why I'm doing the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge next week, because I want you to understand that having these revenue streams in place actually sets you up for success. We can no longer just sit back and be creatives who hope and pray and wish and think that butterflies and rainbows are going to come to us. We have to start creating strategies for ourselves. Okay. Now, I'm not going to overload you with any more. I know this was a lot, and I don't want y'all going through analysis paralysis because, again, I get it. I'm a creative. I'm like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, Landi. I just need to go sit down somewhere. I totally get it. I just want you to do one small intentional step. Okay. Just make one small intentional decision right now. Okay. Take a breath, think about your project, what you're working on, and, just start thinking about how you can apply just one of these things to that project, right? Whatever's been living in your head or on your note app or in your spirit, just start thinking about that and ask yourself which lane feels most aligned with your project. Is it licensing it? Is that something that you feel like would work great? Is it ancillary products? Is it direct to audience? Just one thing. I would love to see in the chat if you could write just one thing that after all you've heard today that you think might work for your film project. Licensing, good. Timmy said licensing. Awesome. Anyone else? What are you thinking might work? All of these. Okay, Hakima. All three. I love that. She's like, I could do them all. Ancillary products. Beautiful. Yes, I love that. Um, excellent. Micro distribution. Beautiful. The products. Great. And you see, and again, then just take that one because I know us, we also think I could do them all, right? I know I suffer from that too sometimes, right? But you just take one thing and you just start working that one thing. And that's something you can start doing today. Doesn't matter where your film is at, right? You can take small steps. Ancillary products are eye-opening. Oh, that's awesome. Licensing and micro distribution. Beautiful. All right. That's all I want you guys to do is just start really thinking about that. And again, inside of the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, that's where we're going to really devise a plan to do that for those of you who are interested. So if you're interested in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, oh, I skipped that slide, but you get it. It starts on Monday. So if you're really ready, today's Saturday, except for Lucas, who it's midnight, right? He's on Sunday, which would mean you'd be up with us late into the night. But it is recorded. So if you sign up for the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge, it is recorded at the general admission level. I believe you have access to the recording for like 2 weeks. At the VIP level, you have access, I think, for 60 days or something like that. So I don't quote me on those days. It is written on the page. I don't know off the top of my head, but you do have access. So if this is something that interests you, and if you have a question, please raise your hand because I'm getting ready to go to questions. I want you to know that these things don't happen by accident. Okay, these are the things that we're going to work on in the challenge. We talked about lanes, we talked about value and the difference. We talked about just really understanding our audience and knowing that, when you pick a lane and you build upon it, you can generate revenue for yourself. Okay. So today we had the map, right? I gave you a little map in the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge. That's going to be the GPS to make that happen. All right. And I created this because I just watched too many talented filmmakers leave, leave these kinds of conversations inspired, but then nothing happens, right? I wanted to take the guesswork out of it and help them to really start making money, right? And stop guessing about how to pitch and stop guessing about how to get the project done without burning out. I wanted to create those opportunities. So that's what the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge is. If you go to landimaduro.com/challenge, you can register if you're interested. And again, if you have a question, raise your virtual hand because I definitely want to answer. Or if you're on camera, you can raise your hand. But I don't want you just to be motivated. I don't want to just motivate you. I want to support you through the process. And I want you to be able to speak to how you will give an ROI to your investors with confidence, right? Not just guessing. Okay. All right. All right. So, I see some questions. Let's see here. Can you tell more about the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge? Sure. So the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge is a 5-day course where we're going to walk through these revenue streams and really kind of talk about how you build them out and how you apply them to your actual project. So we're going to talk about monetization and audience building and what that really looks like and kind of start thinking about how you can do that with your film. So at the general admission level, every day we'll be meeting at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you, and that way we'll kind of go through this generally. For the VIPs, they get hot seat coaching, so they can ask specific questions in regards to their project. They sign on an hour earlier and they can ask specific questions according to their project and what they're working on. And then they'll join the general admission where we'll kind of go through the entire lesson together at 5 o'clock. So they join around 4 and then general admission is at 5. And we'll be kind of going through all of these things. And I will put the link in the chat for those of you who want to kind of check out. There's a video and more information on that on the website. All right. I saw another question. No problem, Hakima. What is the registration deadline tomorrow? You have up until the challenge starts to register. So yeah, just register as soon as you can. Class starts on Monday. So if you want to take part in the challenge, I don't know why that was still there. Definitely go to the website and register. I just put the link that was attached to something weird. So let me see. There we go again. Okay, there we go. All right. Did I see another question? Oh, go ahead. Say your name again. Circe.
Thirsty.
Yes,
Yes.
Circe. Go ahead, Circe.
Thank you so much for the workshop. My question is, how can we use the three revenues as like a marketing tactic for our brand as a filmmaker slash director slash producer that's more on not necessarily the film, but more on you as the filmmaker for like say like you have like your debut film, like that's more about you than it really is about the film itself.
Right. So what are you planning to do with your debut film?
More like putting it into festivals, but showing like the leverage that it has to show me as a filmmaker for like more for like grants for like future
Gotcha.
films.
Gotcha. So yes, I think you could do these for that because again, your ancillary products are not necessarily yes, they're about your film, but you can also have products that tie to who you are as a filmmaker, right? So you definitely want to start with one thing so that it makes sense, but these are things that can be associated with who you are as a filmmaker. I'd like to use an example of something like that with someone who's not a filmmaker. Well, actually, I guess she is kind of a filmmaker, but if for those of you who know who Tabitha Brown is, right? So Tabitha Brown, if you don't know, she is a social media influencer who got famous because she was dealing with health issues, became a vegetarian or vegan, and just started sharing her experience of trying vegan recipes and eating vegan food. That's what she started with just to get to know her. But then she started sharing other aspects that she's an actress, that she wants to make films, that she loves to cook. And so her product base started to grow as her interest grows. So this is kind of what we talk about, taking the audience on the journey with you, and then they invest in the product. So for your first film, if you're sharing, this is my process. This is the product attached to it, support it. But then you're also going on social media and sharing how, how you're developing this, what's happening, and what's the next thing. So now they're getting invested in you as the brand, not necessarily your individual film. And so it will no longer matter that maybe you're like, okay, I'm done with that now, right? You build upon it, and that's a great way that you start to sustain not just revenue for your projects but for you as a brand, because they're invested in you. And we get invested in directors and stuff too. Like, people go and see Ava DuVernay's movie because Ava DuVernay directed it. People go see Steven Spielberg movies because Steven Spielberg directed it. Sometimes you go see it if you don't even really like it, but it's a Steven Spielberg movie, so you're curious. That's why people, pay good money to have their names listed as produced by on their projects. Most people don't even realize Jordan Peele did not direct him. He is a producer and it's presented by Jordan Peele, but there's a different director. But people are like, oh, you're going to go see Jordan Peele's movie, right? So that director is using the value that Jordan Peele's name carries to make money for that film, right? And so that's when you become a brand where people are so invested just because your name is on it, which also means another revenue stream. You can start putting your name on stuff for a fee, right? So that's smart to build yourself as a brand. That's beautiful. I love that question,
Thank you
Cersei.
so much.
Yes, Issa Rae is another example of that. You're absolutely right. We know when Issa Rae puts her name on something, and she's even talking about how she's been doing more producing and misses being on the writing, creating side because that's her first love. But yes, when they put their names on something, she's a great example of someone who's built a brand, and now she can use her brand to put on other people's things to generate revenue, not just for herself, right? But for anything she touches. So yeah, she's a great example of that. Did you say we can watch the course on Zoom later? Not on Zoom. This is actually live on Facebook right now, and it'll be there for a few days. Facebook doesn't keep things live as long anymore, and then more than likely it's going to live on my YouTube page, which is YouTube/Blue Child Academy. But you guys will get an email blast about that.
No, I'm actually referring to the course.
Oh, the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge.
Yeah.
Your question was, I'm sorry, let me go back. Will it be
So like
recorded?
it's supposed to be at 5 p.m. every day from February 9 to 13. What if I'm not able to make that time, but I want to register?
Copy. Yes, it will be recorded. So I believe for the general admission students, I believe I was trying to log in here because I don't remember what the times are, but you have access to it for I want to say like 2 weeks or something like that. And then VIP students have access for like 60 days or something like that. But yes, if you can't attend every class, it's okay. You can always watch the recordings. Yeah, especially for those of you who are in time zones 10 hours ahead. Yes. That's totally fine. So yeah, even if you can't attend the sessions, I've actually had people who do that, students who they only watch the recordings because they can't actually be there at the time the class is held. I saw Lucas Lucas asked, I have done 8 indie shorts in the past 2 years. Some of them didn't get far enough, but 3 of them earned me 4 awards at different festivals, which has been my core revenue stream. Congratulations, Lucas. That's awesome. I wanted to take on my first feature this year, but I'm not sure how to best approach it. How to best approach it in a way it can actually generate revenue from multiple streams. Should I get on with doing more shorts as I learn more of the business side, or am I ready to take features? Which are your thoughts on this? If you've done 8 indie shorts, I think it's time for you to create a revenue strategy for yourself so that you can raise the funds to do features. Because I feel like you should be able to regenerate those shorts. If you've got 8, depending on if they all, if most of us tend to make a certain type of movie, and I'm definitely not that. I got horror documentaries and romantic comedies. Like I'm a little all over the place. But a lot of filmmakers, they have they kind of follow a theme. So definitely if you've got 8 shorts, if they're following a theme, maybe you can make it into a feature itself and sell that as an anthology. Like there's a lot that you could do. I think you need to kind of look at what you have and see, can something be revived? What revenue streams can you create? Can you get people interested again? I feel like with 8 films, unless you just love making shorts, yes, you should start looking at a feature. The other thing I will say, and this is probably one of the most common problems I see with indie filmmakers that I talk to my students about, is that we're always in a hurry. Why are you trying to make a feature this year when you don't have a plan yet? Like, stop. We put ourselves in very difficult situations because we're not planning things out. So I think your first step before you decide to make anything else, especially because you have that many films already, is create a strategy and a plan for yourself of how can I start making revenue with these projects that would allow me to make that feature. And maybe it isn't this year. It might be, but maybe it's in 2027. If you spend all of 2026 cultivating your audience and really start doing those revenue streams, that puts you in a place of power in 2027. So I think you need to kind of look at that and see what it is that you can do to help you go further. You're welcome, Lucas. All right. We just have a few more minutes because I want to let you go at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. Are there any other questions for me? Concerns? Did I miss any questions? I'm going back. Oh, here we go. If investors are always leaning towards proven models, how does innovation ever break through? And at what point does something move from being too new to being fundable? That's a great question, and it's usually a creator's question. So this is the reason why we have so many reboots, okay? Because reboots are proven to usually studios, oh, this movie did so well, so if we reboot it, we can make more money from it. Is that annoying? Absolutely, it's annoying. But that doesn't mean that you can't have something original. Normally, when we're talking about comps, is what we call them, or films that are comparable to yours, it's basically we're looking at how does something similar make money, right? So, and they need to be true comps, which I'm not, again, not going to deep dive into here. But you want to be able to say, I know movies like this have an audience, right? And that audience will go and pay money to see this movie. And here are the reasons why, right? So it doesn't have to be exact, but they need to know that it's comparable to something. A great example, if we go back to Sinners, Sinners is an original concept, right? Technically, we've never seen a horror movie like it, but it's still a vampire movie at its core, right? Now, it's really about more than vampires for those of you, and I'm sorry if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, you can't, it's Oscar season. We gotta be able to talk about these movies, okay? But he could easily pitch it as a vampire movie, even though the root of that movie is unlike anything we have seen before in the horror genre. But technically, it is a horror movie because it's about vampires. So you can be original, but there's truly nothing absolutely original under the sun. The basis of your movie comes from something. And so you can speak to the basis without giving away all the juice, right? So it can still be original. But to your point, studios and the powers that be believe proven, then, ooh, let's try it and see. So you have to be able to sell that piece of it and know that you're coming with something that's truly original. Okay. So that's where that kind of comes in because they get nervous. Unless you're totally funding it yourself and like, I'm just throwing caution to the wind. But even that's not smart if you don't have a plan. And a great example of this, and this story hurts my heart, is what just happened with Jennifer Esposito. You guys should support her film too, where she, leveraged her house to make her movie. And then there was no strong distribution plan for it. Like I didn't even hear about it till I heard that she had to sell her home. Right. And so that movie is called Fresh Killers, I believe, or Fresh Kills. Fresh Kills. It's on Amazon. You can rent it for like $2 and support her. But she had to sell her house because she raised 2 million to make it. It only made 68,000, I think. And of course that hurt. She didn't have proper support. And she even talks about how she didn't have the best producer and all this stuff happened. But again, these things happen because we're so focused. She made a beautiful movie that won all these awards, but the strategy wasn't there. And it breaks my heart to see something like that happen, especially about a style of movie that most women don't have the opportunity to make. Her movie is about female mobsters. We don't see movies about female mobsters. You know what I mean? She put everything on the line for something she truly believed in, and I commend her for that. but it doesn't seem like the support was there for her. And that's what I don't want happening to you guys. You have to start building these things. I know we're excited to make the movie, but when you skip this step, these are the things that happen. Now she talked about, I'm gonna be okay and I'm not quitting. My house didn't go into foreclosure. I just had to sell it, right? Like she was crying, but she was like, I'm gonna be okay and I'm not gonna let it stop me. She learned a very painful, valuable lesson. And so I'm trying to help you guys to learn these before they happen to you. Okay, let's see. Is there anything after the course? Can we reach out to you if we have further questions? Yes. So the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge coming up next week is kind of the introduction to my big 12-month program, where we do both creative and business. And you for that, you have to have something that you're working on, like a feature film, because by the end, I want you to be either in talks to get your film financed, or you're already in production by the end of the program. And I'm happy to say my students, my first cohort, both of them are doing that right now. One's filming right now, and one is raising funds for her to make her feature film. And she's got a lot of interest. She's got a finance company supporting her in that process. So that means the world to me. So that's kind of what comes next. And then I'm also doing consulting. So right now for the month of February, I'm offering, and I'll extend this to you guys who are here on the call. You can get 4 consulting one-on-one consultations with me for a flat fee. And I'll send that to you guys who are here on the call right now. And that's just for the month of February. So normally I charge like 200 an hour for 3 or for 1, but you can get 4 for 600 and there's a payment plan for that. So depending on what your needs are, we have different things available, but next week, starting Monday, is just the course. What do you say to someone who wants to let them show your film for free? You say no, darling. Absolutely not. And you know what? It's okay to say no. I know sometimes that's hard. And honestly, I used to struggle with this. I'm like, but especially because I had a documentary and I was like, man, I want to help everybody. That was the point of me making it. But I actually had someone sit me down and was like, no, boo boo, but you had to pay for all that, right? So you need to be making money from it, right? You had to figure it out. And it's okay. Sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes you may come back later, they may come back later and license it from you. And I would say that's a case by case basis, because definitely there has been some organizations that I really just believe in and want to support, and I've allowed that. But for the most part, you have to learn to say no because you need to start making some income. No one thinks about the fact that you, as the filmmaker, actually need to make money. I've had to say no to even appearances sometimes. It's like, oh, we want you to fly here, 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 here. Great. How am I getting to all these places? Because sometimes I think because I live in Cali that I'm independently wealthy, that all of us are like Hollywood directors. I was like, no. I don't have that. They're like, well, sorry, Lundy, we don't have a travel budget. Well, you know what? I don't have a travel budget either. So unfortunately, as much as I want to support, and I really truly do, I'm unable to support this at this time. But please circle back and maybe we can work something out later. But unfortunately, say it nice, but say no, and it's okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you found this informative and helpful. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Saturday. I hope some of you are going to sign up for the Profitable Filmmakers Challenge. I would really love to see you in there and get to know you all more and support you in your filmmaking journey, because I do believe in you. I do these things because I believe in you. You see, I'm passionate. I don't know how to stop talking, but I believe in you guys and I want to see you win. It just makes me proud and honored to be able to be on this journey with you.